Tech-N20 with CATT Northwest, Season 1, Episode 3, Task Analyses and Cheat Sheets for JAWS Instruction.
CATT, Center for Assistive Technology Training Northwest.
All right, good morning again. We are at another Tech-N20. This week, we are talking about how to create task analyses and cheat sheets for JAWS instruction. So this is always a hot topic, and it's just part of our natural lesson planning. That's how I like to think about it. So when we think about making a task analysis and creating cheat sheets to support JAWS instruction, these are all things that we're doing anyways, as part of lesson planning. And when I say lesson planning, is it necessarily sitting down and writing that formal lesson plan that we do in grad school? No, but even if it's just your little sketch notes in your planner notebook, or if it's just lesson planning in your head, maybe you have to lesson plan on the fly because you go see a student and it's something different is happening. Um, it could be any level of lesson planning, okay? Oh, and I forgot to introduce myself for those of you who might not know me. Dr. Ting Su. I coordinate the Northwest CAT program. Welcome, everybody. And for those of you who are just joining, welcome and good morning. I am going to post a few links in the chat for everybody so everybody has access to the resources we'll be talking about today. So just a quick refresh. Last week, we heard from Leslie and Eli, and feels like a month ago already. But last week, Leslie and Eli went through a sample lesson of how you might introduce a blind student to Desmos with JAWS. So just a little recap for anybody who missed last week. Leslie started with going through some of the non-tech pre-teaching skills, and then Eli was her, somewhat unruly student, and they actually went through a sample intro lesson. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put the link to Leslie's lesson plan here in the chat. It is also linked in our little training guide for the session. So it's on that big Google Doc that you guys see. But what I was hoping to do today was to go through the lesson plan and really tease it apart so that everybody can feel really comfortable about how you just naturally integrate this task analysis approach and kind of you naturally get your JAWS cheat sheet in the lesson planning process, okay? So the link that you guys have from the chat, this is going to take you to the web version, the web view of the document. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and you will see that my screen looks different, but it's only because I'm in the edit view of the document, okay? As I work through the document, you guys will see your web view updating every so often, just so you know, okay? So you guys ready? We're going to go through and check out this beautiful lesson plan from our CAT trainer, Leslie, from last week. All right, so let me make this just a little bit bigger. Okay, so introducing the Desmos Scientific Calculator with JAWS. So Leslie wrote it up in this really beautiful, accessible way where it's in a script style format. And the reason why she did that was, sometimes we struggle with that language and how to even introduce tech. So this is definitely Leslie's words. And as I read through this, I hear Leslie's voice just lulling me into the lesson. I'm feeling super comfortable about it. But what I'm going to do is we're actually going to just kind of skim through all this beautiful script. You guys can read through this a little bit more in depth on your own time. And I'm just going to talk about the general structure of the lesson plan, okay? So we can really understand how this lesson is structured, and again, how this translates really naturally to making those JAWS cheat sheets. Because I think sometimes we get a little bit tense when we talk about cheat sheets. If it's something that you're still learning, you're learning the the task, you're learning the tech alongside your student. Maybe you start to sweat a little bit like I do, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's making me a little nervous. Um, it's okay because we just take this step by step. And that's also what's nice about writing out a lesson plan like this. So even if you're not typically writing out a lesson plan, it might be something that you do when you're doing a tech lesson. Okay. So in Leslie's lesson plan, we have this introduction. And of course, because it's script style, we have a really good sense of how she's introducing the lesson to the student. Um, this is assuming that the student already has some screen reader skills and that they already know how a physical calculator works. Okay. So this is some of those, this this is understanding where your student is at and knowing when they've got those concepts in place already and ready to take it to the next step. So the students already got screen reader skills, they already know how to physical calculator works. Now you're introducing the student to the Desmos on-screen virtual calculator. And this understanding is really important because one of the biggest pitfalls with teaching tech is introducing it too early before students have these conceptual pieces that are going to make sure they're successful in this first tech lesson. We always want to do everything possible to make sure the student's first experience with new tech is successful so that they feel good about it. And, even if you have a little tech challenge, you're going to work through it. You're going to channel that peaceful Zen outwards, keep the panic in, okay? Because we don't want to communicate that to the student. So, because the student already knows the physical calculator, it's just remembering those concepts from the physical calculator that's going to translate to the virtual calculator. So, the layout, the display, the different keys and buttons. Um, and then, Leslie does this great job about highlighting those related skills, so these listening skills. So now she's going through how to get the student primed to listen to what the screen reader is going to say when it's interacting with Desmos. So I love how Leslie did these 3 bullet points just to get the student primed to listen. This is also a great way to do that like ongoing assessment of can they remember, and how much, what's their working memory like too. Okay. Okay. So now we're getting into the meat of the lesson where um, you're starting to teach the student how to navigate to Desmos. So right here, boom, in her script, it says, first, we need to launch the web browser. So actually, this is the first step in the task analysis. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to make a new tab and make a new doc. Oops, I always forget is it doc new? There we go. Okay, so 1, launch the web browser. Okay, here I am. Launch the web browser. Okay, and look at this amazing lesson plan. She's already got the key commands for launch the web browser. So it's click the Windows key, start typing the name, then click enter. Okay, cool. So what we can do here is I'm going to put a comma, and that's my key command. Okay. So now we have, uh-oh, did I actually not do a formatted list? There we go. Step 2. Okay. So it's like in order to launch to get to the web address bar, you have Alt D. Okay. So, you're thinking about how to get to Desmos, you open the web browser. Step 2 is obviously we have to go to the address bar. Okay. So go to the address bar, Alt D right there. And I'll just bold our key commands so it's really clear um, what the cheat sheet terms are. Okay. And then the student has to use their QWERTY keyboarding skills to type in desmos.com/scientific. So this is going to be step 3 on our task analysis. So type the website. Great. Okay, and now it looks like we have to make sure you're in forms mode. So, okay, we got to go to forms mode. Um, change to forms mode. So let's see here. Um, let's say when you're lesson planning, you just wrote change to forms mode and you're just kind of moving fast and you're like, oh no, I did not actually put the key command for forms mode. Or how do I know if I'm in forms mode? Well, no worries, because this is where you can use this as a teachable moment. So here in Leslie's lesson plan, it says, let's press enter to check that we are in forms mode. Okay. But what if I don't know and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I go in and out of forms mode? Um, I could just do a little Google search, right? I can go to the Freedom Scientific chatbot. I can ask, how do I move in and out of forms mode? Um, I'm going to do this with a student potentially. If I've got time in my lesson, we're going to troubleshoot this together. So this is just an example of if you have this moment where you are like, oh my gosh, I think I'm missing a key command, or I'm not sure how to do this because I prepped this last week somehow. Um, this is a really great teachable moment to go through it with your student and do a little bit of this troubleshooting and information finding together. Okay. So again, we are going to channel our panic in. Okay. And for the sake of time, instead of using my Google machine, I'm going to use my Eli machine. So Eli, how do I get into forms mode when I'm on the Desmos website?
If you are running default JAWS without any changes, you can down arrow onto the form and it will take you into the form automatically.
Oh, so if I'm on the Desmos website, I just down arrow or I click enter to see if I'm in forms mode and JAWS will tell me.
Not quite. If you down arrow
Hmm.
and you're running through the web page itself,
Okay.
you'll be out of forms mode. If
Okay.
you're looking for a specific edit box where you want to type, then you can use your web navigation and press E and it will land on the edit box. And you can press enter to enter the edit box. Or if you're down arrowing through the whole page and you haven't changed anything in JAWS,
Yes.
once you're scanning the entire page by default, when you come across that edit box, if you down arrow onto it, it'll make that high-pitched bubble sound and take you into the form field automatically.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to down arrow to an edit box and listen for a high-pitched ear con.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some of this also is tuning that student back to what they're listening, what they're hearing. Okay. Great. Thank you, Eli Machine. So handy. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Leslie's lesson plan. And some of the lesson plan here, it's really, checking in on those JAWS settings. Um, so again, these are just little notes, important things to check, but I'm not going to put it on the task analysis because these are sort of like, side pieces of information. Okay. So then there's basic tips for Desmos. Um, there's the expression list. Uh-oh, equal sign is gone. Thanks for letting us know, Leslie. Okay. Um, says that when you finish typing an expression, Desmos will automatically give the answer. Okay, this is really good to explain to the student, and this is why it's scripted into the lesson plan. Okay, so now that you've explained to the student what that expression list is, that there is a thing, um, here is, you know, here's the key commands for it. So, okay, lesson plan. Explain or explore the expression list. Explore the expression list. What was that key command? Let's see. Typing E is the Desmos expression field. Okay, so go to the expression list, type E. Okay, you have the student practice. Great. Now they're in the field, they're ready to type. Typing E will always put you back in the main math input area. Ooh, and then here's a reminder, and this is not necessarily a JAWS command, but it's a general key command that Control Z is undo and Control Shift Z is redo. So I might not put this as part of my task analysis, but I'm going to put it down at the bottom as sort of like reminder key commands. Okay, so, you know, just so it's there, because after all, this is my JAWS cheat sheet. Control Z, undo. And I really want to make my JAWS cheat sheet like bulleted and just easy to look up, kind of like a lookup table, okay? Do I need a table? I don't think necessarily. I think a bulleted list is going to do just fine. Okay. All right, so here's she's having the student practice entering math problems. So after exploring the expression list, practice entering math problems. So I'm sort of like going backwards here where, you might start with the task analysis and then write out your lesson plan. You might write out your whole lesson plan and then just do a bulleted step-by-step list. And the reason why you might want to, depend on how your brain thinks. But the nice thing about having this step-by-step task analysis is now, once you've got all the steps in your task analysis laid out, let's say the student needs to take their time to learn the Desmos calculator, and you imagine that it actually might take them like a full school year to learn how to use the Desmos scientific calculator very efficiently and proficiently. Um, Maybe this is something you want to write an IEP goal on, yeah? So now that you've already got your task analysis done, you can look at which of these steps you think your students could learn in the first marking period. Boom, there's your first objective that goes to your IEP goal that talks about how a student is going to use a virtual, online, free web-based calculator to complete, X number of math problems on a worksheet with, whatever percentage of accuracy for 3 out of 4 trials. So now you've got this big goal that talks about using the calculator, and you've already got the task analysis. So your objectives are going to be maybe steps 1 to 3 would be your objective number 1. Maybe steps 4 and 5 is going to be objective 2. And then your third objective is going to be practice entering math problems and looking for the answer and translating to the worksheet. So when you go through the task analysis, as the student is learning these steps, you also might have the student open up their own document. It could be on a Perkins Brailler, it could be a digital document, and have the students list out their JAWS commands as well. And now they have made their own cheat sheet, and you've also got your cheat sheet. So while you might have drafted out this beautiful lesson plan to really talk yourself through a script, you might have this more simplified list of commands that you have as your cheat sheet on the table in the lesson, in the heat of the moment, when we get a little nervous teaching tech, and sometimes those key commands just disappear from the brain. So you've got the cheat sheet in front of you, but again, if information disappears from your brain, it's okay. It's a teachable moment, and you're going to look it up together. So if anybody is looking for more resources on writing IEP goals to support this type of instruction, I've got our CATT website here, and I know I am at time. Here's the website, and I'm just going to go to AT for Learning and go to Planning for AT and IEP goals for AT. And here's a little handout for how to write technology goals for the IEP. And phew, that really is a sprint to get all that information in 20 minutes. So hopefully this helps people feel a lot more comfortable with how you go through that lesson planning process, how you develop your task analysis that translates to IEP goals, and of course, how to make your own cheat sheets, as well as guiding your students to make their cheat sheets. So hopefully you guys will join us in 2 weeks. We are off for Thanksgiving break next week. And next week, Leslie's going to take us through tips for setting up Desmos for low vision access. So have a great break, everybody, and see you in a couple weeks. I'm going to turn the recording off now.
The contents of this video were developed through a partnership with the American Printing House of the Blind, APH. CATT-NW is based at the Washington State School for the Blind, WSSB. Logos, WSSB and APH. The contents of this video were developed under a contract authorized by the Department of Education. However, these contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government.